When Batman Forever was released in the summer of 1995, it was an unexpected smash hit. Director Joel Schumacher successfully revitalized the franchise after the divisive Batman Returns. While Forever received mixed reviews from critics, cinema audiences turned out in droves, and the film was a box office and merchandising phenomenon. However, behind the scenes, Schumacher and Batman actor Val Kilmer had clashed during the making of the film. While a sequel was expected by the studio, an accelerated production schedule and an increasing mandate to make the franchise more family-friendly would lead to a movie that would ultimately ground the Batman series for a halt for the better part of a decade. Batman and Robin was directed by Joel Schumacher and starred George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Uma Thurman, and Alicia Silverstone. The story sees Batman and Robin battling a new villain known as Mr. Freeze, who is threatening to turn Gotham City to ice. Meanwhile, the supervillain Poison Ivy makes Batman and Robin struggle to maintain their partnership, and Alfred suffers from a life-threatening illness. While Joel Schumacher and Val Kilmer had clashed during the making of Batman Forever, Kilmer had signed on for several Batman movies and was expected to return. However, Warner Brothers, encouraged by the huge financial success of Batman Forever, greenlit the sequel and wanted it fast-tracked to release in 1997, a full year less than the usual 3-year gap between Batman films. Schumacher agreed to direct the film, despite the accelerated production schedule, and came up with the storyline and villains for the movie in August of 1995, during pre-production of his next film, A Time to Kill. Schumacher also received a mandate from the studio to make the movie even more toyetic than its predecessor.
Which means that what you create makes toys that can sell.
However, Val Kilmer had already committed to the remake of The Saint, Michael Mann's Heat, without knowing that the Batman sequel had been fast-tracked, which clashed with the filming schedule. Kilmer ultimately chose not to return to the Batman role, while Schumacher, possibly glad not to have to work with him again, started considering a new actor to play Batman. Several actors were considered to replace Kilmer as Batman. While Schumacher was interested in casting William Baldwin in the role, the studio suggested up-and-coming star George Clooney. Clooney had risen to fame in the previous few years, playing Dr. Doug Ross on the hugely popular medical drama ER, and had started breaking into films, with movies such as Robert Rodriguez' From Dusk Till Dawn. Schumacher met with Clooney and quickly cast him as Batman. However, Clooney was still committed to shooting the 5th season of ER, which meant the actor would have to work on both productions at the same time. For the role of the film's main villain, Mr. Freeze, several actors such as Ed Harris and Patrick Stewart were considered, but Warner Brothers wanted superstar Arnold Schwarzenegger to play the character. By the mid-90s, Schwarzenegger was still one of the biggest movie stars in the world, despite the failure of Last Action Hero in 1993. Schwarzenegger received a record-breaking salary of $25 million to appear in the film, and this was his first time playing a major movie villain since the original Terminator in 1984. Although this interpretation of Mr. Freeze was vastly different from the character's portrayal in the early 90s animated series, portions of his backstory is inspired by the episode Heart of Ice, written by Paul Dini. To play the role of the film's secondary villain Poison Ivy, several actresses such as Demi Moore and Julia Roberts were considered. However, Joel Schumacher had been a fan of Uma Thurman since her first appearance in The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and was convinced she could play Poison Ivy after her stellar turn in Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. For the role of Batgirl, Alicia Silverstone was Schumacher's only choice. Silverstone had made her feature film debut in the erotic thriller The Crush, but rose to stardom after her lead role in Clueless in 1995. Prior to filming Batman and Robin, Silverstone had put on weight and went on a strict weight loss regime in order to get in shape due to the film's accelerated production schedule. Principal photography on Batman and Robin began in September 1996, with the majority of filming taking place on sound stages in Los Angeles. The tight production schedule, driven by the studio's desire to release the film in the summer of 1997, placed significant pressure on the cast and crew. This urgency led to compromises in creative decision-making, as some scenes were rushed to meet deadlines. Budget constraints also posed challenges. with a significant portion of the budget allocated to the film's high-profile cast and elaborate set pieces. This resulted in limited resources for other aspects of the production, potentially impacting the overall quality of the film. The shooting schedule had to accommodate George Clooney's commitments to filming his series ER.
We had to shoot around his schedule because he was shooting ER at the time. So we shot Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We would try not to schedule him on Friday, so he'd get 3 days in a row. He'd get Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on ER. He worked 7 days a week for months, actually, as it turned out.
Like the previous film, cinematographer Stephen Goldblatt focused on capturing the vibrant colours and dynamic visuals envisioned by Schumacher. The use of neon lighting and bold colour palettes was increased. As was often the case on Batman film productions, security was a major concern. The film was beset by paparazzi on a daily basis, with pictures of Schwarzenegger in his Mr. Freeze suit selling up to $10,000. Since the studio had demanded that the film be even more toyetic than Batman Forever, the toy companies were involved in designing many of the film's props, such as Mr. Freeze's blaster gun. Filming had to be halted temporarily when the gun went missing. A major police investigation was launched, which resulted in a film memorabilia collector's home being raided where the gun was located. The Mr. Freeze suit designed by Terry English cost $1.5 million to create. Schwarzenegger refused to shave his head, require him to wear a bald cap, and wore a blue LED in his mouth. However, the LEDs had to be wrapped in balloons after battery acid started leaking into Schwarzenegger's mouth. Schwarzenegger's total makeup and costume fitting took 6 hours a day, which meant his filming time was severely restricted, as his contract stipulated no more than 12 hours a day on the production. Chris O'Donnell has spoken publicly about how filming this movie was a much tougher experience than Batman Forever. His redesigned Robin suit was less comfortable. His mask had to be glued to his face, which caused sweat to pool all over it. O'Donnell was also unhappy with the rushed production schedule, and spoke about how he felt like he was making more of a toy commercial than a film. Actor John Glover, who played the role of Dr. Jason Woodrue, said Joel Schumacher would constantly sit on a crane with a megaphone and yell before each take, "Remember everyone, this is a cartoon." Batman and Robin was even more visual effects intensive than the previous movie. Although miniatures and computer-generated elements were used for some scenes, large full-scale sets were constructed for scenes including Gotham City covered in ice. For scenes featuring people frozen by Mr. Freeze's ice ray, life-size mannequins covered in fake ice were created. Several different materials were tested for the fake ice before settling on a combination of fibre and resin. According to production designer Barbara Ling, the ice effects alone took half a year to create. Batman and Robin feature over 450 individual visual effects shots, 150 more than Batman Forever. Like the latter film, motion capture was used to animate digital stunt doubles. For the sky surfing sequence, the department recorded the motion of a skyboarder in a wind tunnel at a military base in North Carolina. Despite the pressure of making such a large-scale visual effects heavy film on a rushed schedule, spirits were constantly high on set, with frequent high-profile guests. Filming on Batman and Robin ended on January 25th, 1997. Batman Forever composer Elliot Goldenthal returned to score Batman and Robin. Possibly as a result of the film's truncated post-production schedule, the score, in my opinion, plays like a greatest hits compilation of the previous film's soundtrack, with many tracks seemingly repeated here.
If you watch kids play, they're composing their own music. And I was going, yeah. And this is what children do.
However, despite this, Goldenthal does come up with several new themes. The music for Mr. Freeze is defined by heavy brass and percussive elements that underscore the character's cold and calculating nature. The theme incorporates icy textures, using instruments such as vibraphones and chimes to evoke the chilling aspects of his persona. Uma Thurman's Poison Ivy is represented by a more seductive and exotic musical theme. Goldenthal employs lush strings and woodwinds to capture her allure and dangerous charm, using a serpentine melody that reflects her manipulation and control over nature. Goldenthal makes extensive use of orchestral colour to create a vibrant and dynamic soundscape. He employs a full orchestra with augmented brass and percussion sections, creating a bold and immersive auditory experience. The use of unconventional instruments, such as the celesta and electronic elements, adds a layer of modernity and whimsy to the score. Interestingly, Goldenthal's musical score to Batman and Robin is the only film in the series not to have an official standalone release. The soundtrack album released in conjunction with the movie instead featuring songs by the Smashing Pumpkins, R. Kelly, and Joel. It could be argued that the only thing that this movie is really about are selling toys and making money. However, on closer inspection, there does seem to be a strong theme of family running throughout. The film focuses on the evolving relationships within the Bat family, comprising Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. Throughout the film, these characters navigate the complexities of teamwork, trust, and loyalty. The dynamic between Batman and Robin is characterized by tension and conflict, as Robin struggles with his desire for independence and recognition. This tension reflects the challenges of balancing individual autonomy with the responsibilities of partnership. Over the course of the film, the two heroes learn to trust each other, highlighting the value of cooperation and mutual support in overcoming obstacles. Batgirl's introduction adds a new dimension to the theme of family. As Alfred's niece, Barbara Wilson becomes part of the Bat family, reinforcing the idea that family extends beyond blood relations. Her involvement in the team's mission underscores the importance of unity and collective strength. Also, like the previous movies, the theme of duality is ever present, particularly through its villains, Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. Both characters embody imposing elements of nature, ice and vegetation, yet share a common trait of dual identities. Mr. Freeze is driven by his desire to save his terminally ill wife, Nora. His transformation to Mr. Freeze represents the duality of human nature, as his love and compassion are overshadowed by his cold, ruthless persona. This duality is reflected in his icy powers and his quest for vengeance against those he holds responsible for this tragedy. Pamela Isley, or Poison Ivy, represents another form of duality. As a passionate environmentalist, she seeks to protect nature at any cost, but her methods are destructive and lethal. Her ability to manipulate plants and use them as weapons highlights the paradox of her character, fighting for life while spreading death. These themes, while sometimes overshadowed by the film's poor execution, remain relevant and thought-provoking aspects of the story, providing a foundation for understanding the motivations and conflicts within the film. Let's not mince words here. Batman and Robin is a car crash of a movie that single-handedly killed the entire movie franchise, at least temporarily. While Batman Forever marked a tonal shift in the series from the dark and gothic vibe of the Tim Burton movies to full-on 60s-style camp silliness, there was still an element of darkness that was retained, particularly in its subplot of Bruce Wayne reconciling his parents' death. Also, Forever, despite its overall camp tone, was anchored by a strong performance by Val Kilmer as Batman, who brought a lot of gravitas to the role. It's clear he took the part very seriously, and maybe the well-documented conflict he had with director Joel Schumacher was a direct result of this. I like George Clooney as an actor, but he's completely miscast in the role of Batman. While he's given serious dramatic performances in many films over the years, his approach to playing Batman as this cheery, nonchalant, lovable rogue shows that he had a complete misunderstanding of the character.
7 million. Never leave the cave without him.
It's clear from interviews he gave at the time that he wanted Batman to be portrayed as someone who got over his parents' death long ago. That misses the whole point of Batman. He never got over it, and never will. That's why he fights crime. It's not entirely Clooney's fault, as he was really only doing what Schumacher wanted him to do. In stark contrast to Kilmer, Clooney and Schumacher had a very good working relationship. Make of that what you will. Maybe that was the actual problem. Many great movies have been made when there is conflict. By all accounts, Batman and Robin, despite production difficulties, was a fun shoot. Then of course there's the dialogue. Oh my god, the dialogue. The whole movie is just littered with terrible puns, mostly coming from Mr. Freeze, which all have the common theme of, you guessed it, the fact that Mr. Freeze likes ice.
Everything freezes. You are not sending me to the cooler. What? killed the dinosaurs. The Ice Age! Stay cool, bird boy. Can you be cold, Batman? All right, everyone. Chill. Cool party. It's a cold town. Allow me to break the ice. I will pull Batman's heart from his body and feel it freeze in my hands. Let's kick some ice. Tonight's forecast, a freeze is coming.
Schwarzenegger has a talent for making poor dialogue sound cool. No pun intended, but he fights a losing battle against the script. And the other characters fare even worse, with Robin having not one, but 2 jokes about hanging around.
Who invited you?
I was just hanging around. Oh. So this is where you hang out.
The film's screenwriter Akiva Goldsman, who has done good work since, should be ashamed of himself. Despite the film's rushed development, there's absolutely no excuse for anyone looking at this script and thinking it was acceptable. It's especially egregious given that around this time that the terrific Batman animated series had been and gone. In fact, as stated earlier, Mr. Freeze's backstory is inspired by the classic episode Heart of Ice, which to me is the definitive depiction of this character. Like previous Batman movies, there are also too many characters. The Dark Knight trilogy that was to come showed that a talented writer and filmmaker could make great Batman stories out of large ensemble casts. But here, it seems that the studio is trying to appeal to every possible demographic. George Clooney for the ladies, Uma Thurman for the men, Alicia Silverstone for teenage boys, and Chris O'Donnell for the gay element. I'm just kidding. However, on rewatching the film, I think Uma Thurman is a standout. Despite the terrible dialogue, she seems to be the only one who knows exactly what kind of movie she's in, and gives a delightful, sexy, and enjoyably camp, in a good way, performance. She actually looks like she's having fun. I think the worst performance goes to Alicia Silverstone. Unfortunately, she's supposed to be Alfred's niece visiting from England, but she doesn't even make an attempt at an English accent. Also, she famously put on weight after her breakout success in Clueless, and despite her attempt to lose it, isn't entirely in the best shape to be believable as a superhero. This led to some fan backlash, with some unfortunately nicknaming her Fat Girl. However, despite the movie's reputation as the worst Batman movie ever made, I have to say it does have a certain fun appeal, and does have its good moments. If you watch it as basically an extended episode of the 60s TV series, it's certainly more enjoyable from that perspective. The visual effects are very good for the most part, and the production design and costumes are very impressive. Poison Ivy's entrance at the auction is genuinely great, and I love the music. And despite all the silliness, there are a couple of genuinely terrific scenes. There's one particular moment where Mr. Freeze, in prison, makes an ice sculpture of his wife. It's a short but hauntingly beautiful scene that looks like it's from a much more serious, and dare I say it, Nolan-esque Batman movie. Also, there are a few genuinely heartfelt and well-written moments between Bruce Wayne and Alfred that are well played by George Clooney and Michael Gough that sums up their relationship so well. Overall, however, Batman and Robin deserves its reputation as one of the worst superhero movies. It's easily the worst Batman movie ever made, and killed the movie franchise. It does have a certain camp appeal if you're in the mood, but it's a movie I usually skip whenever I rewatch the series. On its release on June 20th, 1997, Batman and Robin was expected to be one of the most successful films of the year. Warner Brothers aimed to capitalise on the franchise's previous successes and marketed the film extensively, the advertising budget alone being $125 million on top of its $165 million production budget. Merchandising was aggressive, with the usual broad range of products from toys to video games flooding the market. The studio's confidence seemed to forecast another blockbuster hit, similar to its predecessors. Contrary to expectations, Batman and Robin was met with overwhelmingly negative reviews from critics and audiences alike. The film was criticised for its campy tone, perceived over-commercialisation, and lack of coherence in its storyline. Movie critic Gene Siskel, who liked the previous Batman films, described the film as a sniggering, exhausting, overproduced extravaganza. Dyson Howe of the Washington Post called it an emptily flashing, meandering fashion show of a summer flick, and believed it should mark the end of the Batman film series. Commercially, although the film opened strong, with an opening weekend of $42 million, it failed to sustain its momentum at the box office, dropping significantly in the following weeks, eventually making $238 million on a $165 million budget. The movie was considered a financial disappointment relative to its high production and marketing costs. The immediate aftermath of Batman and Robin led Warner Bros. To reconsider its approach to Batman. A planned sequel tentatively entitled Batman Unchained, which was rumoured to feature the villains Scarecrow and Harley Quinn, was cancelled. In the 25+ years since Batman and Robin, several cast members have spoken frankly about their disappointment with the film. George Clooney being one of the most vocal, stating in many interviews about how bad his performance was, and actually apologising for the film.
Didn't you apologise to the crowd at Comic-Con for Batman and Robin? I always apologise for Batman.
Joel Schumacher was even more candid, admitting that he let the film get out of control and took full responsibility for the film's failure, and, in a refreshing show of humility, publicly apologised to fans.
If I disappointed them in any way, then I really want to apologize, because it wasn't my intention. My intention was just to entertain them.
And you know what? I think that's great. If only more current-day film directors and producers would apologise for their mistakes. Not mentioning any names. Joel Schumacher passed away in 2020, so let's let him rest in peace. Chances are, he did the best he could. Back in 1997 though, the failure of Batman and Robin seemed to put the movie series on permanent hiatus. However, 8 years later, an up-and-coming filmmaker named Christopher Nolan will bring Batman back to the big screen in a glorious rebirth. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of Batman and Robin. And if you enjoyed this video, then please give it a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Share this video out there. And please join me next time for part 5 of this series. Bye for now.